short review of NRA's gun handling safety. Let's look at rule number 1. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. This is the primary rule of gun safety. A safe direction means that the gun is pointed even that if it were to go off, it would not cause injury or damage. The key to this rule is to control where the muzzle or front end of the barrel is pointed at all times. Rule number 2. Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. When holding a gun, rest your trigger finger outside the trigger guard alongside the gun. Until you are actually ready to fire, do not touch the trigger. Rule number 3. Always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Whenever you pick up a gun, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Keep your finger off the trigger. Engage the mechanical safety if possible. Remove the ammunition source, magazine or ammunition from the magazine tube. Open the action, visually, and physically inspect the chamber or chambers and magazine area, which should be clear of ammunition, and leave the action open with the mechanical safety engaged. If you do not know how to open the action or inspect chamber or chambers, leave the gun alone and get help from someone who does. Let's review. Number 1, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. Number 3, always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. And now let's let Randy tell you about the range.
This is a pistol range. The long building behind me, that's your rifle range. Now the first thing we're going to talk about today is see the red flashing light. Whenever that red flashing light is on, that means that there's a ceasefire inside the building. During a ceasefire, never ever bring a gun onto the range out of a case. If you have a rifle like this that's in a case or a pistol, a pistol caliber rifle or pistols in cases, you can bring them on. But if they're out of the case, never bring them on during a ceasefire because that's unsafe. Now you're going to come onto the range. You have all your weapons in a case. You see that there's a ceasefire? Go ahead and set your equipment down until the ceasefire is over. How will you know the ceasefire is over? The chains will go back up, as you see right there. The light switch will be turned off. Whoever is running the ceasefire will say the range is hot. You may commence fire. That means you can go forward, set your equipment up on the bench. Now how do you do that? We're going to do rifle and pistol so that you can see you can shoot pistol caliber rifles on the pistol range. You walk up to the bench. So now you know that the ceasefire is not in effect. The range is hot because no lights are flashing. You see that the chains are up. You bring your gear in, pick out the bench. I've picked number 13. This is where my firing line is going to be. So I set my gear up here. I unzip my bags. I take my first pistol out. I unzip my pistol, making sure that before I take pistol or rifle out of the bag, it's always pointed down range. I look in, sure enough, it is pointed down range. I take the pistol out. I immediately break the cylinder open, make sure there's no brass in it, and set it down, action open, so that if a range safety officer walks by, he can see safe, nothing in the chamber or in the cylinders. Okay, if you brought a semi-automatic as well, take it out. Now I see it is pointed down range. I take the weapon out, drop the magazine, showing safe, lock the slide open, showing clear, but with this I lay it down this way so that as the range safety officer walks by, he sees safe, no magazine in the weapon, clear, nothing in the chamber. Then you take your rifle, same thing, open it up. Remember, case and uncase only on the bench, on the firing line, never behind the ceasefire line. Okay, and remember, always take your equipment out with the barrel pointed down range so that you never sweep anybody with the barrel of the weapon. You take your magazine out, open your action, show safe and clear. Safe, no magazine in the weapon, clear, no round in the chamber. I just got out of my car. I don't have a case for my weapon. what do? I break the cylinder open, barrel pointed vertical, make sure there's no brass in the weapon. It's a semi-automatic, lock the action open, remove the magazine, carry it in a vertical position. Check to see if the red light is flashing. If the red light's not flashing, you can go ahead and bring it onto the range. If the red light is flashing, that means there's a ceasefire, and no gun, revolver, semi-automatic, or rifle comes onto the range out of a case. What we want you to do is shoot consistently at the target. What we don't want to see is any rapid fire to where now you're shooting up here, because where the round's going to go, right into the baffles, okay? You can do a double tap, you can do a failure draw. You can even do rapid fire as long as you're hitting the target and you're shooting and you have a misfire. You pull a trigger, nothing goes bang. So you try to open the weapon, but it won't open. Okay, so now you have a jam. You have a live round in the chamber, whether it's a revolver or a semi-automatic, and you can't clear your weapon. Set the weapon down. Remove the magazine if it has one, and you can't. Open the actions to all your other guns. Go to the range office and get the Rangemaster or whoever's a range safety officer working that day. Come down and they'll fix your gun, get it cleared, get everything working. You just have a misfire, but you can pull it back and you clear the round that didn't fire. What do you do with that round that's now had a strike but hasn't detonated? Here again, get your little plastic container behind you. They're all along the beams. Put it in there and let us worry about it. We'll get rid of it for you. Okay, let's assume that you're running the range today. You're down on the pistol range, you've never had a ceasefire, you're not a member, you're not familiar with how to run it, or you are a member and you've just never called a ceasefire. Sometimes when there's very few people here, we allow people to run it themselves. So what do? You want to call a ceasefire. Maybe there's 2 or 3 other people. You let them know, hey, we'd like to have a ceasefire. As the person calling the ceasefire, you're responsible to be sure that all of your weapons are action open, magazines removed, and then that everyone else does exactly the same thing and then steps behind the ceasefire line. Ceasefire line is where you see all the yellow chains, where you see all the red lines. Now you set up the chains all along the different points, as you see this one right here. You can just go ahead and call the ceasefire. You turn the light switch on. You say the range is cold. You go out here where the chains are. Okay, you hook them up here. What does this do? What this does is with those chains at all the other points, as well as these, it makes it to where nobody can get into the firing lane. During a ceasefire, nobody is allowed up to the firing line, and that's just common sense. Be sure that every time you call a ceasefire, someone, you or somebody else, checks that every weapon on the firing line, the actions are open, the magazines are removed, and it's safe and clear before you go down range. Now, once you've got these chains up, you've confirmed that everybody's actions are open, their magazines are removed, you can say, okay, the range is cold, you may go down range and set up your target. You grab your target backer, you walk out to whatever distance it is you're going to go put your target up, whether it be 20 yards, 25, or 50, set your target backer up, you're good to go. Now, everybody's got their target backer set up or updated their targets or whatever they were going to do, and now they're back. So now you're ready to go ahead and commence fire. What you do is, first of all, make sure everybody, again, is behind the ceasefire line. Nobody is out in front of the firing lane. You say, okay, you come back, first thing you do is take your chains. Put your chains back where you got them from. Walk back. You say, all right, now the range is hot. You turn the light off. Everybody can go forward and commence fire. The pistol range has 2 distances to shoot from. Long side, short side. Long side is 25 and 50 yards. They use these tall target backers. The short side, which is under 25 yards, uses the very short target backers you see here. Simple way to remember this: long side, tall target backers; short side, short target backers. So I get a staple gun, get whatever kind of target I'm going to shoot at, set it up, staple it up, so that the next ceasefire, when everybody else is ready to go down range and put up targets, I have a target backer prepared. I've got it sitting right here, and I'm waiting patiently for my chance to go down range, set up my new target. You have decided that you're going to shoot the clays at 50 yards. A lot of guys will take the 22 and they will set regular clays that you shoot at with shotguns at the 50-yard berm, as you see out there now, and they will shoot at them, and that's just fine. The brass needs to be cleaned up. If you're a shooter and you want to take it home, great, put it in your bag, take care of it. If not, all along the beams or all along the walls are these red coffee cans. Please, before it gets too thick, sweep it up and pick it up so nobody slips and falls on it. If you do reload and you're firing your brass during a ceasefire, as you see the lights are going, the chains are up, a lot of people want to walk in front of their bench and pick up their brass, and that's just fine. But what we don't want to see is, oh, I'm going to set it on the bench. There's no reason to touch the bench during a ceasefire for any reason. If you want to come out and pick up whatever it is that you have in front of your bench, that's fine. But be sure to not set it on the bench, do not touch the bench, do not go near the bench. Just put it in your pocket. Be sure that when you're done picking it up, come back to your chains so that they're back where they should be. You're on the range, you're shooting, and all of a sudden you find some live rounds on the ground. What do? Pick them up. Take them and put them in one of these cans that are very similar to this, okay? And just throw them in there and let the range take care of them. We'll get rid of everything. You're ready to case up and go home. Grab your bag, because here again, where do you case and uncase? Only on the firing line, only on the bench. Move your stuff over where you can put your case up. Get your cases out. Take your pistol case, unzip it. Take your revolver, making sure that it's clear and empty. Close it. Put it in the case. The barrel pointed down range. Put it back in the case. Put it away. Okay. Next thing is, get your other case. I have a case here for my pistol. Okay. I take it. Let it go forward. Drop the hammer. Put it in the case. Making sure that it is empty. Okay. Now for your rifle case, here again, what do? You do not bring the rifle back to the case. You bring the case from wherever you've placed it, set it on the bench. Take the rifle, put it in, close the action, zip it shut. Take your magazine, put it in your pocket. Now you're ready to walk out the door. Voila. Now this is an adult activity, gentlemen. We expect adult behavior. Now what does that mean? That means that if you make a mistake and a range safety officer has to correct you and you cop an attitude, you will be asked to leave right then. If we have to correct you 3 times, we figure either you need to go home and practice, you're not listening, or there's a problem, and you will be asked to leave. Now is that because we're cool and you're not, or any of that garbage? That hasn't got anything to do with anything. This is about your safety, safety of the other people on the range, and the safety of all of our neighbors. So if you have any questions, see these white badges up here? Anybody with the badge that's white is a member that'd be glad to answer any questions. Anybody with the yellow badge, like Jim over there, they're a range safety officer. They'll be glad to answer any questions. I'll be glad to help you any way I can, okay? Your eyes are required. They're over there. You paid for that when you came in. There's earmuffs over by the targets. You paid for that when you came in. There's pop, there's coffee, there's candy, whatever you need. And if you need any help, just holler.
And now let's let Randy tell you about the rifle range.
Guys, this is a video that's going to teach you about how we play out here. We want you to be safe. We want you to have a good time. We want you to come back. But we want you to understand the basic fundamental rules of safety, and we want you to know how those rules apply on the range. Okay? With that thought in mind, as you look out here, you'll see the benches. All right? On every bench is a number. The numbers are sequential, starting at the far end of the building, down here, bench number 1, coming all the way back to number 19. As you see right here, this is bench number 17. Now, if you'll notice on the left side over here to your left, The first 5 benches, starting from number 1 to number 5, are the 50-yard berm. Your 100-yard line is where all you see the numbers at out there. What you do is you go out to the 100-yard line, you walk around the back of the berm, you'll see a cement slab. There'll be a number, like this one on the back of the bench, which is 17. You find number 17, you find the holes on either side of it, that's for the target backer legs. So when you walk out to the 100-yard line, if you get lost, you don't remember where you are, look back, find your rifle, look down at the bench. On the front of the bench is the same number that's on the back of the bench. That way you know exactly where you're at. Now if you decide to set up a target at the 200-yard line, you see that cone on the road to the left? Yeah. Okay, when you go out, you set the cone up. When you come back, you knock the cone down. Now why? Because if you step over there, you'll see the road jags around the back of the 50-yard berm. So if you decide to go out to the 200-yard line, we need to know you're going out there, okay? You see all the numbers out there? Mm-hmm. Now, I say this not to be facetious, but to just be honest. I've been asked. The numbers are not the targets, okay? No matter how many bullet holes you see through your scope in them, please don't add bullet holes to them. All right, you come onto the range. You look and you see, are the yellow chains up? No, then the yellow chains are not up. Are the red lights that you see in the top of the building flashing? If the red lights are not flashing and the yellow chains are not up, it's not a ceasefire. If either of the above is going, you want to make sure, before you try to walk out to the firing line from the ceasefire area, that there is no ceasefire, that everyone else is shooting. If everybody else is shooting, you step up here, you look around, you see where you can find an empty bench. What is an empty bench? An empty bench is someplace, doesn't have a rifle on it, doesn't have a target. How do you know where you're at? You look at the back of the benches, you'll see the number for that particular bench. I look over here at number 13. I look out at number 13 at the 100-yard line, and wow, there's no target at 13. There's nobody sitting at 13. So I set my rifle down. I set up the bench. Put your chair down. Set your place up depending on how you're going to set your rifle up. This is how I set mine up. Then what you do, remember, here's your number, 13. Number 13 on the front of the bench, so that when you get out there to hunt it, you forgot where you were, just look back and find the number, or find your gear first, then find the number, you're good to go. Coming onto the range with a rifle that you don't have a case for. If you have a rifle that you don't have a case for, remember to remove the magazine, and when you take it out of the car, open your action so you see safe, no magazine in the weapon, clear, nothing in the chamber. Then you carry it in a vertical position with both hands, and you can bring it onto the range while everyone is shooting. Now, if the red light's flashing like it is right now, never bring a rifle out of the case onto the range. Rifle or pistol out of the case onto the range during a ceasefire. During a ceasefire, no weapon is allowed behind the safety line out of the case. But if there is no ceasefire, bring it in just like this, set it up on your bench, commence shooting. All right, you've looked at the light on the outside of the building. It is not flashing. You look at the light when you come in. It is not flashing. The chains are not up. What does that mean? That means there is no ceasefire. When there's no ceasefire, you can bring a rifle onto the range, magazine removed, safe, clear, no round in the chamber, carrying it vertically. Okay, go find your bench. But remember, if the red lights are flashing on the outside of the building, never bring a rifle out of the case onto the range under any circumstances. Now, you're shooting, you've done your shooting, you know, you're finished, you're going to go get your target next ceasefire. Take your rifle, again, remove the magazine, put it in your pocket, open the action, once again, showing safe, no magazine in the weapon, clear, nothing in the action. Take your rifle, again, people are shooting, there's no lights flashing, there's no chains up. Go ahead and take your rifle just like this, walk off the range, put it in your car. There you go. What we're going to do now is you've come out, you've come to the range, you found an empty bench. What is an empty bench? A bench is somewhere where nobody has a rifle set up, and you look out at the 100-yard line, or the 50, depending on which bench you're using, and you see no rifle or target, okay? You set it down on the bench, you unzip your case. Again, remember, pointed downrange. You take your rifle out of the case. The first thing you do is drop your magazine. See the magazine fall. Lock the bolt back. That way we can show safe and clear. You set it down just like that. That way the range safety officer can walk by and he'll see safe, no magazine, clear, no round in the chamber. Now, what do you do with your rifle case? You can lay it down beside you. But remember, case and uncase, only on the bench, not behind the ceasefire line. Okay. Now the next thing is, let's assume for some reason that your rifle won't lock back. You have a semi-automatic that will not lock back at all. First option is a chamber flag. You pull your bolt back, take one of these chamber flags, slide the chamber flag in, go forward, and you show with the chamber flag that it's nice and safe and clear. Now let's assume for some reason that your bolt won't lock back, like on the Brownings or the AKs or any other semi-automatic that won't lock back. Pull your bolt to the rear, take a piece of empty brass, put it in the chamber to where we can see that there's no way for the bolt to go all the way into battery and cause a negligent discharge. That way the range safety officer, when he walks by, he will see that your magazine is removed, no magazine safe, no round in the chamber or chance for the weapon to go off, and have a negligent discharge so it's safe and clear using the brass. Now, let's say you're done. You've shot, you're finished, your rifle's all sighted in. Ready to go home, you reach down, you grab your case, bring it up to the bench, pull your bolt back, lock it back if it locks back. With the magazine removed, take the weapon, put it in your case, okay? Then go ahead and zip up your case. Take your magazine, if your case has a pocket like the one I'm showing you here has, take your magazine, put it in there. Now, if you don't have a pocket on your case, take your magazine, put it in your pocket. Okay, take your weapon. Now you're ready to leave the range. Put it back the way you found it. Put your bench back up. Now when you get ready to shoot, what we want you to do before you put a live round in the chamber is we want you to be on target. What happens is people will have their rifle up and they'll put their bolt forward, especially in ARs. When the bolt slams forward, you can have what's called a slam fire. Well, if you're pointed at the target, no harm, no foul. It hits the berm. But if you're pointed up like this, where does it go? Right into the baffles. That's why we got 12 holes in this 6-month-old set of baffles. Okay. Plus, we don't want to see any fly fishing. What's fly fishing? That means you put a round in the chamber, whether bolt action or semi-automatic, and you look through and you realize you're not on target. So then you start doing this on the sandbag, and we see it all the time. Guys are banging the sandbags with their finger in the trigger, a live round in the chamber. And that's another reason that we have holes in the baffle. Okay, so remember, no fly fishing, no loading up. Always keep it pointed at the target, okay? Well, go ahead.
Why do they hit it on the sandbag?
Because they don't have it lined up. Say the sandbag is too tall, well, instead of moving the rifle over and banging it down with their hand, they use the rifle as a tool.
I got it.
Let's say you need a Coke, water, you got a phone call. You know, whatever you need to do. How do you leave your rifle? Never walk away from a weapon without the action open and the magazine completely removed from the weapon. Preferably laying on its side like this, so that when the Rangemaster or the person checking the line comes by, they see an empty chamber and they see the magazine has been removed. Okay? Now another thing what we want you to remember is, see these two lights right here? They're strobe lights, just like you see at a fire department or anything like that. When those start strobing, that's a ceasefire. He will call a ceasefire and let you run your own. And what that means is open all actions, remove all magazines, and step behind the red line. The red line is all these red posts where you see the yellow chain. But before you step behind the red line, what we want you to do is get whatever you need off your bench. Whether it be your coffee, your phone, your targets, whatever you need. Because once you step behind this ceasefire line, there's no going back forward, okay? And that's just common sense. You wouldn't want to be downrange and see somebody handling a gun. Now, if you look down here to the end of the building on the left side, that's where all your target backers are. See all the staple guns hanging off of the red posts?
Yes.
Those are for stapling the targets up on the target backer so you don't have to shoot at the numbers, okay?
Cool.
Now the next thing is you see these black things all along there? Those are your spotting scopes. You paid for that when you came in. If your scope is such that you can't see, or you're shooting open sights and you can't see where you're hitting, one of you can spot for the other person while they're shooting and call their shots. Also, you see these cages. If you're shooting ARs or AKs, these squirrel cages are so that when you're shooting, you set it up next to you to catch the brass. That way you're not sitting next to some big gorilla and you're shooting and dinging him in the side of the head and he gets up and says things you don't want to hear. So remember to use a squirrel cage, okay? When you came in today, houses, 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 more houses, and there's a school. If you're shooting a new rifle and you want to set it, see this first set of cabinets right here? There's a rifle rest that belongs to the club, pretty much eliminates the human error, that you're welcome to use. You paid for that when you came in.